word safari is Swahili. It means a journey. Everyone and everything is on the move in Africa. I'm on the move too. I'm heading into some of the remotest and most beautiful areas of Tanzania. The reason I've come here is that in many ways this is the birthplace of bushcraft, and surprisingly it's still very much in evidence here today. The art of bushcraft is about being out of doors, relying only on our knowledge and understanding of the natural world around us. So here in Tanzania I can not only survive but really enjoy my natural surroundings. Travelling to a remote mountain range in eastern Tanzania. But to get there, I'm going through one of the best game reserves in the world, the Serengeti. It's absolutely brilliant to be back in Tanzania. This has to be one of the top destinations for safaris in the whole world. It's an amazing place. The promise of seeing animals in their natural habitat is why so many tourists flock to this part of the world. But looking isn't always seeing. Bushcraft is a lot about looking at nature, or rather, learning to look, to analyse what we're seeing. One of the things when you have encounters like this is I think people sometimes get preoccupied in watching the animals and they forget to notice what they're actually doing. And of course, here these young are chewing the bark on this tree, and if you look closely you can see the sign that they're leaving, the damage that they're causing. When you watch closely, you see that they're not actually eating the bark, but they're after something that's underneath it, some sort of insect, I think. If you come along and you don't see the monkey, but you see that the tree has been barked in this way, and you were to look closely, you'd see their teeth marks, then you would know that there were vervet monkeys here. Fantastic to watch the lions like this. They're just lazing there. There's some young ones just lying on their back with their paws in the air. But I'm not the only one enjoying the sights. Once the animals are spotted, the traffic jams start. The animals have got so used to the vehicles that they simply don't run away from them. You can get terrific shots, but the downside is that people forget that they're in a wilderness, observing wild animals, not in the safety of a zoo. You can really get led into a false sense of security when you travel into a park like this and the security of a vehicle. I heard a lovely story this morning from a lodge manager who went out for a drive the other day, left his lodge and was driving out and found one of his guests going for a jog, wearing jogging kit. Quickly hustled him into the vehicle. He said, "Here, what do you think you're doing, going out to feed the lions?" I can sympathise. I hate being cooped up in a vehicle myself. So I'm off for a real safari, bushcraft style. Most of the journey's off-road. We're heading east to Angata Kitty, one of the most remote regions in Tanzania and one of extraordinary natural beauty. For the film crew, travelling light is impossible. The paraphernalia of filming means that they have to have a fixed camp. It's not quite my idea of being in the bush. I'm not a great one for crowds. I like to have some privacy. And without asking, the guys here have kind of picked up on that. And so they put my tent the furthest away, which I'm really happy about. Yeah, this is home. Picking a good campsite is very important, and this has a good feeling about it. But this wouldn't be an ideal place to sleep out under a tarp, I don't think. The plenty of sign that hyenas are around, and they have a reputation for biting people's faces off in the dark. And a couple of cheetah have been seen in the area. But what a beautiful place to camp, fantastic. Nice tree there, maybe we'll put a fire under here. I guess you could say this is a bit of a ritual. It's been a long drive to get here, and I've had to go through some game parks where you're not allowed to step outside of the vehicle, which I find personally extremely frustrating, even though it's a sound rule and keeps people safe from large cats and other predators. But it's great to actually arrive in a place where I can walk around. I can look at the tracks on the ground and start to feel comfortable again. It's amazing, you know, you just step a few feet away from your camp, turn your back on it and look out, and you start to see the baboons here, you start to hear the birds, meet your new neighbours, and you feel a part of what's going on around you. I think that's one really good piece of advice for people going on expeditions or overland trips in gap years, is always remember at some point turn your back on the group and look out, because that's why you went there in the first place. It's all too easy to get sucked in to the human dynamics, and you know, if you don't do that, you miss out on some fantastic experiences. First light, and I was looking forward to a very special meeting. Our campsite was in the heart of Maasai country, these rolling hills providing lush and plentiful pasture for their cattle. The Maasai are the largest tribe in Tanzania and live as farmers totally dependent on the land and their animals, without any of the trappings of our way of life. I was planning a trek through their terrain, and my guide was Mateli. He is a Maasai warrior, responsible not only for the herds, but the safety of his entire village. He has an intimate knowledge of this landscape, and had promised to take me far from the tourist tracks. We were camping out for a couple of days, so Mateli prepared his supplies for the trip. Goat meat and fat boiled up together for storage. My preparations were slightly different. Rations come ready prepared. But the Maasai carry their food in a rather unique way. The goat stomach lining is cleaned out and it's made into a sack for the meat. Wooden pegs are their version of a ziplock. I always take a water purifier with me. It's an essential bit of kit for anyone who's not local. With the nights cold, it was definitely worth taking a sleeping bag. In no time, I was packed and ready for the off. But Mateli's preparation was taking a while longer. So meanwhile, I met up with our ranger. It's big game country, and he was going to be with us for protection. There's an abundance of natural resources here. One of the most interesting is the wild sisal. This plant here is a common feature in this terrain. The Maasai name for it's alderpai, and that's where we get the name for the gorge, Olduvai Gorge, because a lot of this grows within the gorge. It's got another nice name too, mother-in-law's tongue, and you can see why. It's got a point and it's rubbery. But this is wild sisal, and amongst the native peoples of Africa this has been used for making snares and for making bowstrings. Some people call it the bowstring hemp, and it's quite interesting how you get the fibres from it. A very succulent plant. What I need to do is to break it down by pounding it like this. You can see the fibres starting to separate there. Plant's comprised almost solidly of fibres. I learned to do this from Bushmen down in the Kalahari. The pounding is just the first stage. You can see the plant softening now. And what I want to do is to split it open like that, all the way down its length. Pound it just gently now. So now on the other end of the stick I've carved it to form sort of a blade shape like that. I'm going to use that now to scrape out the pulp. Now you get to a point where some of the fibres are starting to lift out from the pulp. What we do is we comb those out like that. And then specifically scrape them down to the bare fibre. You can hang those on a bush to dry. There we go, there's the raw material. Nice long fibres for which we can make very strong string. Just add new fibres in as you need. The key thing is to keep these strands equal thicknesses. If one gets thinner than the other, it will tend to wrap around the thick one, and then you only have the strength of one strand rather than the strength of the two combined. These sorts of skills are disappearing because of the availability of man-made fibres, but you think about it, there's not a lot of effort involved in making this stuff, and it's completely biodegradable and just simply grows back. Metelli has his own string for the pouch. It's a simple strip of bark.
He said that, well, I'm ready. I have, I'm going on a journey, and I have the sword, a spear, and a stick with his food when he's going a long distance traveling.
Yeah, so where are we going then? With Metelli ready at last, we were off across the vast open plains. This is what safari is all about. The experience of being on foot has always inspired me. It's so different from being in a vehicle. Seeing the wildlife close up and walking alongside filled me with awe. Africa is a land of huge horizons, and it's only on foot that you get the most honest perspective. So this, is this a manada? This is a seasonal village where Metelli's family once lived. It's now deserted. Amazing to think that these huts were for one family. Metelli's father had a staggering 22 wives. That's a window. Yeah. This is the Maasai window, tiny little window, but it gives them a chance to look outside. And they like the insides of the houses to be dark because it keeps the flies from coming in. But tell you, you've lived all your life in a house like this?
Yeah.
Amazing. The roof's covered in dung as well as the sides.
Yes.
The last time I saw the Maasai houses, they had thatched roofs. They use whatever is available from the countryside around. The huts looked as though they'd grown out of the landscape. Once a thriving community, the huts are now crumbling, having been abandoned when the rains failed and the family had to move on. Can we have a look around outside?
Yeah. And that's the other part for goats and sheep.
The goats and sheep, the little boma for goats and sheep.
Boma is the word the Maasai use for the fencing they construct out of spiny bush around their village. If it looks vicious, it needs to be. The cattle and indeed Maasai children might otherwise provide a meal for the wild animals that roam this territory. Nitelli, if there were 22 wives, how many children were there?
Yeah, they counted his children. There were 68.
68 children?
Yes.
Were they all his own?
I know.
Yes, they were all his own.
Yeah.
And did the wives get on?
Yeah. Yeah, and they are okay because he has a lot of cows.
The Maasai may be farmers, but they still live closely with nature, having to adapt themselves to changes in their environment. Their simple way of life makes it easy for them to move on when needs must. Sites like this are common in a continent where people live more closely with their surroundings.
You've got datura growing here. It's one of these plants these are the seeds. One of the English names for this is moon seed, and because in some parts of the world people use this as a hallucinogen. In North America, the witch doctors or medicine men use this so they can contact the spirits. But if they overdo it, they never come back. They're there with the fairies forever. We had to start looking for a campsite in good time as night falls quickly in this part of the world. We'd be camping Maasai style, no pitching tents, just the vegetation around us for protection. We're going to stay here.
He said this is a good place, a spot for the camp, and because there's a
there was an old fire here with the 3 stones.
Fire here, so we just make around here.
So we're going to put a boma up around here for protection.
We make our boma here, and we make a door through here.
Okay.
Then we make our place to sleep here.
Okay, I'll get the fire going.
An old weaver bird's nest makes ideal natural tinder.
I've heard that you always light your fire first, is that true?
Yes.
Yeah? Why is that?
Because this can help us to make everything. So to chase maybe if there's animals, they can smell smoke,
yep.
And then
they go away.
Yeah.
So the fire is the most important thing.
Very important.
Yeah.
And for the people or Maasai, if they smell the smoke, they can identify where people live.
So if someone gets lost, you can find them by the smoke.
Yes. For those who are lost, they can come and find where you live.
These African woods are like iron. I don't bring a really fine cutting tool here because they'd damage the edge. Just a very simple crude tool like this. Mind you, it still has to be sharp.
It takes quite a bit of wood to make the barrier around our camp.
This is one place I don't load my arms up with firewood because it's exactly the place you find a scorpion. One bit at a time.
Scorpion and the snake.
Okay. So it seems to be a bit of a gap here, Lemoyne.
Yeah, but no, he's coming to...
He's going to close it with that. Alright, I'll get out of the way.
Oops. Oh, sorry. This is the way to put.
Metelli was using the same technique as in the old village, with thorny bushes to protect us against the wild animals.
These thorn bushes take you a little bit by surprise when they fall down. You can see why they're such an effective deterrent for wild animals. Well, I'll put loads down, I'm quite big.
I think that's enough.
Okay, good.
In the jungle, you don't sleep while here.
Yeah. What are the rocks for, Lemoyne?
He's just making the part of the sleep. Yeah, not to go to roll on the fire.
Yeah.
Might have a nightmare and to roll together.
You might have a nightmare. What, with me sleeping here? I'm your worst nightmare, Lemoyne.
The perfect way to keep warm and yet safe away from the embers.
This is a place for firewood.
Yeah.
If you get any firewood, you bring here.
It's always interesting to see how different cultures go about organising their camp, and this was the first time I'd seen how the Maasai sleep safely in the bush away from the village.
This looks really comfortable. I mean, this is the sleeping area, and this is the posture springing, if you like, and also keep you out of the dirt. Brilliant, very, very comfortable, cosy.
Yeah.
Once we'd settled in for the night, Metelli got out his goat stomach pouch and tucked into his stew.
Yeah.
The camera crew went back to their camp, leaving me to carry on filming with a small home video camera. We pulled our door across and continued our supper. The ranger, Lemoyne, seemed to prefer my ration pack to the stew.
Wow, very delicious.
It was great to spend the night out and share stories around the campfire, talking of cattle, wives, and well, you should have been there.
I told Namoyan the story of Count Dracula. With bats flying above us. Ooh. Mitelli fell asleep. He was so scared. Tell you, when I set off yesterday, I felt, oh my God, I've got the biggest rucksack again. We got here, right? We're set up, camera crew have gone. Mitelli here turns to us and says, I haven't got enough blankets with me. In the middle of the night there is. Right then, which way? This way?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm looking forward to seeing this.
I was surprised when Mitelli suddenly led us into a hidden gorge. I had no idea that this landscape held such a treasure. This is Olcarion Gorge, and it's a tremendous breeding place for the griffin vulture.
This is an incredibly interesting plant. It's one of the most poisonous plants on the planet. It's from the seed of this plant, the castor bean plant, that the poison ricin is produced. And that poison is so effective that it was used by Soviet Secret Service to carry out assassinations. And in recent years, of course, terrorists have taken an interest in the plant.
At every turn I saw plants I recognised, and so many of them have uses.
Fantastic, look at all this aloe. I think I'll cut one of these leaves. You can see all the juices dripping out here. Of course we use aloe a lot these days for treating skin conditions, particularly as an after sun, which is very effective for skin protection. It has a lot of medicinal uses. I'm going to show you what we can do with it in the field. The first thing to do is to cut off the thorns on the side, like that. Then slice it down the middle like this, and then this can be peeled apart like this. And this can be used as a medicine on skin. It doesn't have all the properties of the preparations that we carry with us, but that is a field expedient use of the plant. Very soothing. Mind you, you have to make sure you get the right plant. There are other plants that look like aloe, and if you did this would burn your skin. So it's important that you know the right plant. Mitelli, do you use this as a medicine?
Yeah, it's a medicine. They use sometimes to drink, for diarrhea, to clean your stomach, and for the wounds, and sometimes to drip for the cow's eyes.
Despite the abundant vegetation, finding water is never simple. Then Mitelli revealed a secret weapon. He told me that the Maasai had hidden this spade here for as long as he could remember, so passers-by could dig for water whenever they needed it. And sure enough, he knew exactly where to look. As we walked, the landscape changed again. The path narrowed and the rock faces towered above us. We were entering a canyon, a lost world hidden away from the scorching plain.
In arid landscapes, canyons like this offer immense protection for anyone who's lost. Perhaps the most important thing is that the geology here helps you to find water. Firstly, because when there's a change in the stratas, you often find water coming to the surface. But also these tight canyons help to shade the water from the sun, which means it doesn't evaporate. And of course, water means life. This is the track of a lion cub. It seems that everybody enjoys this gorge, that it's cool, there's nice water here. But naturally there's one question on my mind. If that's the cub, where's the mum?
This could have been a menacing place, but actually it was cool and peaceful, with the solemnity of a great medieval cathedral. For me, it had a powerful atmosphere. I wondered what Meteli thought.
This gorge is made by God for everything, because this is made for human beings to drain their cow here and the vultures to lay their eggs. And when he brings cow, he gets a fresh water and cold, and cows will not be attacked by predators.
As we rested in the shade, Meteli decided to make a tonic. He unearthed a root that would provide the medicinal ingredient. It was clear to see just how comfortable the Maasai are in the bush. Once we all lived in a similar way, but today most of us have lost this intimacy with our surroundings. As the ultimate goal for our walk through the gorge, Meteli wanted to show me a very special place, symbolic for the Maasai.
Is that Malenga?
Yeah, that's Malenga.
What was the story about that?
The mountains is active, it's volcano active. So the Maasai believe the mountain is created by God, and that way is active, and the Maasai normally go to pray under that mountain. Yeah, there's a story, because they believe if women go there under that mountain, for those who did not get babies, they get babies. And that's why the name started from there.
That's what does the mountain mean?
The mountain means, the Oldonyalangai means the mountain of God.
The mountain of God.
Yeah.
It was a fitting place to end our safari, though I've always felt that the journey is more important than the destination.
Thank you very much. Ashinarling.
I was sad to be leaving.
So long. What a nice man. As I watched Miteli walk away, I thought about his world, a natural world in which he is king. He seemed in harmony with this world, which is in complete contrast to the white hunters who came on safari with their rifles in search of trophies. The great white hunters mercilessly exploited nature for financial gain. Today attitudes may have changed. These days talk of wildlife often goes hand in hand with conservation. Even hunters must face the reality that our ancestors knew, that you must never take more than the land can provide. In the 19th century, the idea of conserving wildlife rather than plundering it for profit was still relatively new. Strangely enough, one of the greatest conservationists of the age, Frederick Selous, began his career as a hunter. But what set him apart was that he was one of the first people to realise that the stocks of wild animals were diminishing in the hail of lead being let fly by European hunters. Frederick Courtenay Selous is one of my all-time heroes. Born into a long line of wealthy bankers, he bucked the trend and spent his life in Africa studying wildlife. His passion for the natural world started when he was a schoolboy at Rugby. In his account of his childhood, he describes how as a boy of 9 he used to go out on night forays into the woods nearby, how he would go bird nesting, and how in the winter he trapped water rats, weasels and stoats for their furs. I can sympathise. I've always had a passion for the natural world, and as a boy spent my nights alongside animals such as badgers, foxes and stoats. I admire this champion of African wildlife who spoke out against the norm of wanton destruction. His fame even attracted the attention of the President of the United States, Theodore Roosevelt, who, having read Selous' memoirs, African Nature Notes and Reminiscences, became hooked himself on his own version of conservation. He and Selous started a long and impassioned correspondence in which they discussed detailed observations they were making about nature and animal behaviour. Selous' keen eye for nature is reflected in the highly detailed drawings he made of the animals he hunted. He also organised what may have been the biggest safari of all time, Roosevelt's legendary safari with its astonishing retinue, almost 300 strong. Animals were killed in droves, but always in the name of education. It's difficult for us to understand how killing and conservation could go together, but we must judge them by their day, and these were the earliest days of conservation. It wasn't until later that trophy hunting was challenged by the new interest of nature conservation, with its emphasis on understanding animals rather than stuffing them. Another early start to meet a man who spends his life on safari filming wildlife for television. His understanding of animal behaviour and his ability to capture it on film comes from a life spent in the bush. Good morning.
Hello.
Warren, I presume.
That's correct.
Very nice to meet you.
Hi there, Rick.
Isn't that a beautiful morning?
Oh, it's stunning, isn't it?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Amazing light.
Yeah.
Have you seen anything yet?
No, not yet. We're just looking up for cheetahs at the moment.
Warren Samuels has been a cameraman working here for 20 years, making his living filming wildlife. It's this precise and painstaking study which I call Bushcraft, the fine-tuning of his sensibilities to his natural environment. Amber was one of the cheetahs he filmed for the BBC One series Big Cat Diary, in which everyday adventures of big cats were relayed back to the British audience from the Masai Mara Game Reserve. His months of waiting paid off, and he caught scenes which we take for granted when we see them on our TV screens, but which take years of careful study and waiting. We were hoping to use Warren's knowledge and experience to help us find cheetah, although looking out at such a vast expanse, it seemed a difficult task.
Right now, where do you think the most likely place for cheetah to be is? Is it going to be close to the cover here, or out in the open?
It's more likely going to be out in the open. They don't like lying up near the thick cover because invariably that's where a lot of your larger predators like lion and hyena would lie up. And if you look over there, Ray,
yep,
in that distant hill,
yep,
just in the foreground there's a patch of very short green grass that stands out, and then there's a huge bunch of gazelles there.
Are they Thompson's gazelles? Yeah,
and I think that's a very good place to go and start looking for cheetahs.
There's a lot of animals.
Yeah.
What an amazing sight, isn't it? I don't know how you feel, but when I look out on something like this, in a morning like this, I feel incredibly privileged.
It's starting to get warm now, so yeah, I think what we should do is try and get in amongst the gazelles and just look for any of the trees nearby and just have a good look under the trees.
Look to see the cheetahs in the shade.
Yeah, they'll probably be lying up in the shade now. I've got that little window.
It's only short, isn't it?
Yeah, a little window of opportunity to be able to find the cheetahs on the move, and that's sort of generally just sort of sun up and like 9, 10 o'clock, and then after that they're gonna find shade and lie up.
Quite hard for the cheetah too, isn't it? More water over there. That's where there's wildebeest been heading.
Yeah. Well, that's a nice group of wildebeest heading down towards the water there, isn't it?
That's got to catch the predator's eye, surely.
Sort of place that lions would lie up, yeah? I think the best chances now are going to be looking in an area where we do have these isolated clumps of trees, because the disadvantage now for the cheetahs of these short grass plains like this is just that if they're up and moving,
the visibility,
everyone's going to see them, which makes it that much more difficult for them to hunt. What they're going to be looking for in that case is what they'll do is they'll course through the gazelle herds and they'll look for weak animals, sick or old animals, or fawns. There've been quite a few little fawns jumping around.
Yeah.
And if a cheetah spots a fawn, it'll do a long chase. They'll run up 600 meters chasing after a little fawn, because it's almost a guarantee they'll catch it.
We've got a cat here, Warren. It's not a cheetah. I'm not sure what it is. It looks like a sort of like a wildcat. Can you see? Do you see the trees in the distance?
Mm-hmm.
See that first big acacia from the right?
Oh, right. Ah, it's a caracal. Good spy.
He's
That's
running.
great.
I think.
Quite rare to see those, Ray. That's a really good sighting. Well done.
Then something extraordinary happened. Warren spotted not just one cheetah, but a family.
That's fantastic. We've picked up these cheetahs, but the cheetahs are amazing, but they're a long way off. But it's interesting to watch the way the zebra are responding to them, isn't it?
Yeah. These are definitely going to be hunting cats, without a doubt.
Is that 2 adults there?
Yeah, it's very strange. Never see 2 adults together like this with a whole lot of cubs. Generally, it's always just one mother and as many as 5 or 6 cubs. It looks like it's possibly a mother with an older daughter, and both adults have got a litter of cubs. This is really, really unusual to see both family groups together. There's one of the adults was broken away. It's running.
Oh!
Animal's running up front. It's chasing. It's running at the gazelles. It's picked up a fawn. It must have seen a fawn. Follow the lead animal. Quick, have a look.
Speed.
Follow the lead animal.
Amazing.
Following the lead animal. Watch it. Watch it. It's probably seen a fawn. It's going in.
I see it.
Can you see it?
Yeah, I see
Keep
it.
your eye on it, because I'm sure it's going to hit. It's grabbed. It's grabbed. It's grabbed. It's killed. Just caught a big male Tommy over there.
That dusty area.
Yeah.
That is incredible. The speed at which they made that kill. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't see the lead animal. It just, went straight out of my vision.
Yeah.
It all happened so quickly, we missed the moment when the cheetah actually grabbed the Thompson's gazelle. It was an awe-inspiring moment, and one we'd never have seen without Warren's experience.
Have you seen how big the gazelle is?
It's quite big. It's got antlers.
Is it an adult? Is it?
It's an adult. And the zebras have come onto the watch. Look.
Yeah. So what do you think of that, Ray? Not lucky, hey?
That was amazing.
Incredible experience there.
To be honest with you, I didn't think we'd see anything either. I mean, to come out with just one day and pick something up. But I did think when we got up here and we saw the caracal and all this game spread out before us, there was a chance. But it's a big haystack and it's a small needle.
Anyone can take snapshots with a camera. What sets Warren apart is his knowledge of the wildlife of the African bush. In a sense, my interest in bushcraft started when as a child I wanted to see nature at first hand out in the woods at the back of my home. Here I'd experienced a closeness to some of the most majestic creatures on earth. Back at camp, I'd been volunteered as assistant to Ali Mumba, our rather unorthodox camp cook.
Oh, I don't know about that. Ali, I may be able to learn about the bread, but I think we've got to have a chat about firelight. Very slowly.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, very okay.
Go then.
Yeah, let's take it over there.
We're going to prepare the
yeah, okay.
fire. Okay.
So here's, you've got the charcoal. Spread out the embers.
Yes.
Okay. Yep.
Here
Bread?
one bread and one.
Okay, I'll bring one over.
Slowly.
Slowly.
Yes.
Slowly.
Pole, yes. Pole.
Sour.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Get those down.
Sifter air on top.
Yes. Slowly. Pole. Yes.
Sour.
Top.
This on top.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Come back 20 minutes again, check.
20 minutes, we'll check it again. All right,
Yes.
another 20 minutes, I'll see you then.
Okay.
I tell you what, I'm glad I'm not a TV
Welcome.
chef. I'd be half cut by now, wouldn't I?
Okay.
That is amazing, Ali. Beautiful bread.
Without any proper oven, I really admired the way this meal came together with none of the normal trappings of a modern fitted kitchen. Even the local staple, ugali, has a dual use as a sort of edible spoon.
Use your fingers, you cut the piece and you make a little ball. See? A little ball. This is to fix some sauce. Get some sauce like. You see the sauce stored there?
It's great, isn't it? Bread and ugali is like the meeting of two cultures. Fantastic. I think one of the real magic things about these sorts of trips is the cultural exchange. Because, all around the world there's all sorts of conflict. But at the end of the day, we're all human beings. We all have the same preferences, like for a good staple diet, laughter, company. Oh, fantastic. Ashenale.
I'd seen a privileged aspect of life here. Mitali had shared age-old Maasai traditions with me, and Warren had introduced us to some of the most unspoilt scenes of wildlife on Earth. But this fragile world is under constant threat. Just over the border, the Kenyan Wildlife Service leads the field in protecting it for future generations. They may be a sophisticated military force, but at the heart of their operation is one of the oldest of all bushcraft skills, tracking.
To see what the KWS tracking team can do, they've asked me to set them a trail, and so that's exactly what I've done. I've sent our assistant director off with one of their members. He's there to protect her in case of wild animals, lots of lions around here. And I've set a fairly difficult trail. There's no purpose to this trail, like real poachers would have. They're going somewhere because they've got something they want to do. That enables you to get into their mind and predict where they're going to be and what their next move will be. We don't have that here. That makes the tracking more difficult. And also the terrain that we've chosen is quite challenging. We've got lots of vegetation here and there's hard rock as well. So it's really going to test their mettle.
Rose told me to take a large turn. More than 45 degrees. Right, we've got about 2 minutes to go to ground, so we're gonna have to go to ground now. Okay, behind this termite man maybe? Oh, in these bushes. In these bushes.
Okay, Peter, yeah. 20?
20.
Okay, I'll show you the first trail. Okay. Do you see the anthill there?
Yeah.
That's it? Okay. Good luck.
Fun. This type of bush runs undisturbed for hundreds of miles, and picking up a trail's difficult, so I'd given them the first sign to get them started.
You can see they've clearly got the direction of the trail. They're moving confidently straight down here. You can see the speed with which they're moving says that they're hot on it.
We're accustomed to using tracking for animals, but these ranger skills are all to do with finding people.
Despite the ground being quite sandy here, it's also quite hard and it's not showing much sign. But what we have got is long grass. When the long grass gets flattened down by the foot, it shines back at us so we can see it more easily from the grass that's standing upright. But it also points the direction of the trail, and it's quite accurate, and here we can see the trail going in this direction. Things have slowed down a bit because the trail could have gone either to the left or to the right of these bushes. They're not certain which. So that what they're doing is they're casting ahead. They've sent some men to the left, some to the right to look for the sign. What will happen is one of these teams will pick that sign up. When that happens, you'll see it all speed up again.
This is fresh because you see the flowers, it's fresh, it's not dry. You see the grass also.
At first glance it's difficult to make anything out here, but in fact there's a print here which has caused the ground to crack, but it's most notable in the way sand has been deposited on this vegetation here. They call this transfer sign, and the way the vegetation itself has been broken and bruised, and you can see it's still moist. That means this trail is fresh, because on a day like today when it's very hot, that's going to dry in just a matter of minutes. You see there the dark colour where there's moisture showing through. Again, at first glance you may not see anything, but there's lots of sign here. What we've got colour changes where the soil, the moist soil, has been disturbed from underneath the dry soil. We've got flattening indicating a human footprint, and we've got transfer where soil has been moved down on top of this vegetation and the vegetation's wilted slightly, again showing recent disturbance, and it's all pointing in the direction that the team is heading. Linking up with the last piece of sign is this rock which has been disturbed from its original position. Judging by how dark the soil is there, we know that this is fresh, because if it was old, this would have evaporated moisture that was trapped there and it would be light coloured. So this is in the same time bracket as the last bit of sign, which links the two together.
Yes, the culprit.
The culprit. Oh, no, not that.
Where's the license?
I don't have one.
At long last we have arrested the Mzungu.
Well, there you go. Just goes to prove, eh? These are the men who are protecting the elephants here. And those who want to come here and shoot them, they better watch out. Before the Kenyan Wildlife Service started in 1989, Kenya had lost an estimated 85% of its elephant population poached for their ivory, and extinction was a real possibility. Now the 1,000-strong force of rangers roam the bush on patrol, tracking down the poachers. The ivory trade has all but died out, and the elephant numbers are again growing. My last morning in Tanzania. I'm always sad to leave Africa, and I planned one last type of trip, or rather safari. Something special that I'd never done before. Fantastic way to see Africa. I love coming to this continent. There's an energy here that's difficult to describe, but it reaches right inside you and touches your spirit deep in. I'd witnessed bushcraft here in a traditional context with the Maasai, and in a thoroughly contemporary way being used to track poachers. Using the ancient hunting skills of bushcraft for the purposes of conservation really brought home to me the way bushcraft has so much relevance to some of the best things in our world today. We're very lucky to have places like this to come and observe and learn about nature. But you know, that job isn't over. Places like this only exist because we're still trying to hang on to them and protect them. In many ways, the job of conservation has only just begun.